All right, guys, it's 6:30. Are we ready?
We've got 8 out of the 9 on your list. So
Okay.
all right, how are you?
Good, and you?
Yep, I think we're good.
Is he broadcasting?
He's going to start right now. Okay. All right.
Okay, thanks for joining us. My name's Ray Warwick. I'm with the township. It's Skylar Miller running the board back to the township. We're not going to participate, the township people. We have independent people here who are going to run this, and they'll introduce themselves in a minute. We appreciate this. I think everybody knows how to work their mic. Make sure it's on when you're asking a question or making a comment. There are snacks back there on that table, and the restrooms are right through that set of doors.
Thank you, Ray. How's everybody doing this evening?
Great.
Thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate your time. Go back to the first slide here. Just let us know where we're going tonight. We're trying to have a hard stop at 8 o'clock for an hour and a half. Okay. I'm going to try and go through 9 or 10 slides here as a kind of a background educational piece. What are our goals we're trying to accomplish here? So going through that, I'm going to try to do 15, 20 minutes tops on that, and then we're going to go straight into questions, answers, discussion, focus group stuff, okay? And then we might take a 5-minute break, after an hour. You can talk amongst yourselves, or, we can come back and then finish up in 15 or 20 minutes. Get you out of here hopefully later, okay? All right. My name is Jay Stewart. Let's start. I'm a planning and zoning consultant. This is Doug Woolsey with me today. He's a civil engineer. Just to start, the project team, this is a short and sweet project. This is basically consists of 3 focus group meetings and then a design charrette at the end, really starting to look at kind of first high-level master planning, of the site, envisioning what could be. You're the first focus group, as I said. And again, that's kind of where the project's going. The project team, we've got Doug Carnish. He's an economist. We had a market analysis performed over the past several months, okay, to start everything, to kind of start to get our arms around what the Sycamore Township market in the greater, market area looks like. Where are the needs? Where's the gaps in terms of types of businesses and land uses that might go here? There's myself, Jay. Dave Wright. Doug is standing in for Dave. He cannot be here tonight. And then Lynn Nishwitz is not here, but she will be at the last meeting. She's landscape architect, and she'll be doing all the coloring on the fly, in the design charrette and master plan. Okay. So the project goals. Again, if you have a question, even in this 15 minutes, just stop me. But project goals for this kind of 4-meeting process is, like I said, want to understand the Sycamore Township market. That comes from the market analysis and meeting with folks like you and the other focus groups. Number 2, we want to educate on the site and what possibilities with the site. And we also want to gain feedback, from all 3 focus groups. Ideas. What are your ideas on the site? For this one, ask straight up, do you have any concerns or issues about development of the site? For sure, we want to be proactive, in coming to you. And third big goal there is, at the end, we ultimately want to create a vision for the site. That's the master plan. That's kind of that last design shred. Take the input that we've heard, and try to come out with a master plan that if and when the township wants to, sell this at a later date, to developers, at least there's a roadmap of that vision. It's very common for communities when they own their own land, and if they want to sell it for development, you typically start with this kind of process. Okay, so that's why we're just starting that discussion. Market analysis, just one slide real quick. Key points, and I think, Scott, you've given them the market analysis that was in the email?
Yes, everybody should have the executive summary.
That's what I thought. So, market analysis, there's a lot in there, but I try to pick out 4 high points. Again, it talked about looking at commercial and retail opportunities in the market. I think that's a no-brainer with what's here already. The question would be, do you want more of that? Really, not that it will work here, but I think we know it'll work. Do you want that at this site? If there is a residential use or residential component to that, in the market analysis at a high level says you probably need 80 to 120 units to have that make economic sense. And again, that's using what developers would usually be able to do on this size of a site or part of this site. Okay? It could be less, it could be more when you talk to developers, but that's a start. Okay. Number three, pandemic. Obviously, it's certainly going to delay the office market. And the office market, frankly, in my opinion, is the big elephant in the room. What's going to happen? We don't know that yet. Doug, the economist who did this, when I talked to him, he doesn't know either. He's got some ideas, but again, even when the economy, I think, perks back up, which is, we're seeing that starting now, again, my sense is it's still going to be a chunk of time before we really see, are people are they keeping a hybrid model? Are they bringing most of the people back? We don't know yet. So that's something that you just got to keep in mind. And that story's not written yet. Okay? We're still kind of living through the pandemic. And then the fourth kind of takeaway was, target businesses that aren't moving to e-commerce. Obviously, the pandemic has accelerated that. It was happening before. But, his point is, hey, listen, if you have a say-so on what businesses come here, try not to, attract businesses that you think either today or you think maybe moving towards a heavy e-commerce model. Okay? Stick to the traditional brick and mortar kind of land uses that are going to be there and have some sustainability. Okay. With that, this is the site overview, the same photo that you have here on the boards. This is a color aerial, the pointer here. So Montgomery Road, you folks are up here. There's Orchard, okay. Former Pep Boys, former Taco Bell. I think former Useless Max, former place where I had my braces put on back in the 80s. I think it was all Dr. Yeah. There was multi-family on the site. Oh, was there? Okay. Yeah, that's around there somewhere like that. So, that's the site, 7.5 acres, give or take a few. But it's basically 7.5 acres. Great access, great frontage, great visibility. Frankly, there's a lot of things that could go here in terms of types of land uses, with all those things going on. So it's good to be in that position. At least, the township would have options. You're not stuck with one type of land use or one or two. There's several that could go here. It's a question of what is best. And again, that's why we're starting this dialogue. Okay. With that, I'm going to turn it over for a minute or two to Doug. You can't see this real well. We have a board of this too. Just want to come up at some point. We've got the topography lines on there that shows you, the elevation of the land and how it falls or elevates. And so I'll have Doug, again, spend a minute or two on kind of some high level, from a civil engineering perspective, from a site perspective, what's going on.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, so as I said, I'm Doug Boosty. I'm a civil engineer. I'm here to answer any technical questions you may have. Yeah, so generally the site does follow Montgomery Road's topography, where it falls from your northwest corner to your southeast corner. There's a little exception there in the northwest portion of the site. So that's generally how the site will fall and the topography of it. Currently, I believe there's about 5 driveway aprons in this lot, and with a frontage of this size, we expect, and with the new development, you'd have somewhere 2 to 3. And obviously, those driveway connections would have to be coordinated with the developments on the south side of the property, but that's something we'll work through to kind of make sure that you're not causing any issues with the other south side of the street. Utility-wise, everything is really in place. We have a 12-inch sewer and a 12-inch water line in Montgomery Road. So we imagine all the utilities. There's also overhead electric service along Montgomery Road. So all the utilities would be pulled off and connected from Montgomery Road. I think that's generally it, Jay. Is there anything else I'm missing site-wise?
So at the end of the day, the site is set up pretty well to develop.
Yes, sir.
So
Question. I literally live right behind this property.
Yes.
Myself and my wife, we're the Kluges. We live over in Orchard. Okay, you say the levelness of the ground there is, it runs one way or the other?
So, yeah, there's a little section. So basically right here, if you could see this line I'm drawing, I'm kind of shifting.
All right.
That's generally where the lots split. So there is a section in the northwest corner based on the contours we're seeing.
The northwest corner, could you, with your pointer?
Yeah, the northwest corner is right here.
Okay, all right, okay.
Did I do that? Sorry. Northwest corner is generally in this vicinity right here.
That's the high or low point?
That is the high point. It also looks like it's flowing to the north here.
So once again, so the backs of the property is the high point?
Correct.
All right.
Yeah, so our low point's all the way down here.
So that's where the water's going to go then.
Most of the water, because I'll be real honest with you, we have an issue with water.
We always have.
And that's something we're back and talk, because we do see that based on the contours I'm seeing. It looks like you have a little bit of section here that is not going that way. It's going towards the
Right, toward the properties. Okay, good, perfect.
Looks like there's a milk build up. If you look at the contours, you know, kind of beginning of your backyards.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
property
there is,
line is like, is there
literally
like a
is.
3-foot hill in your backyard at the back line? Yeah, that's what we're seeing, yeah.
It just runs right down.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Those two little alcove things, are those homes
Yeah, yes. Those
And-
are
and
residential homes that
those are-
township owns.
that the
Yeah.
township owns? Okay, that was that the town, okay.
Yeah,
I
So,
purchased those through the years.
okay.
they're rented out right now.
So whatever you would do there, those would probably come down to give access to Orchard from that?
You know,
Well-
not necessarily.
Oh.
And again, I'm not here to say.
It's to be
yes or no
determined.
anything.
Okay,
I can give you my 2 cents as a land planner. I mean, planning 101, the book would say, hey, listen, you don't want to mix, in almost any scenario, you don't want to mix commercial or kind of business traffic, no matter what it is.
Right.
Medical, retail, you name it. You don't want to mix that and run that through a neighborhood
okay.
unless you can't help it. Here you've got frontage with, probably, what we would typically see on a 7.5 acre site, talking about access, on something like this, it has a lot of frontage, like 600 or 700 feet of frontage.
Yeah, but it's like 650 of,
650.
yeah.
You'd probably see two. I can't speak for the township and say, if I was reviewing plans or dealing with developers, I'd want to see at least 2 access points from a safety standpoint. Some communities and some developers would want a third, and that kind of, but, so, again, the site lays out well, and again, I don't say yes or no on those parcels back there, but again, that's kind of development 101. You don't want to take that traffic through. Sir, yes.
If you've got the congestion that we already have by the mall, I mean, it's just unreal. You sit there, it's getting like Field Zertle. But we're on, if you're going to exit on Montgomery Road and not have outlets onto Orchard or whatever, then how are you going to do that? Because you would have to have another light, and that would cause more problems because you got a light right there at the church and the banks, and then you got the Kenwood Road there. So how would you enter and exit through there?
Well, here again, very valid point. There's an ongoing problem. I know that I believe the township has done a study to alleviate, or at least a planning study, to alleviate some of the congestion back in 2012 with the team. Thereabouts, I don't think anything's ever done with that. But it's still out there. And what would you do? It depends on the development. It depends on the number of vehicle trips. Is it residential? Part of it is it business? Is it office? Is it retail? They all have obviously different numbers of traffic at maybe different peak times. So that's what the traffic engineers, the planners would be talking about. So they'll be looking at things like that. I can't give you an answer because we don't know what we're doing. Okay. There's situations, and again, I'm just giving you case studies I've been involved with. There are situations where communities would say, hey, we're going to give you right in, right out access only. We're going to restrict left movement. Maybe one of the 2 access points for right in, right out. Maybe the other one isn't left, right? So there's a lot of options, I guess is how I want to answer it, and it's completely dependent on the types and density of the land use. How many people are working, visiting, shopping, and or living there? Any combination of that. So, very valid point. It's one of the critical things, frankly, for any project, that's going to probably be, on the dense side or dense, or, or could be, traffic you got to get head on, so there's options, there's tools. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go through my slides. I anticipate we're going to talk about all this stuff in the hour. Okay, so we're not abandoning it for sure. I want to put a slide on here, just some of the township, high level goals, for the site. Certainly, without question, whatever would happen here, we want to make sure that some of your properties, the backyards, your properties are protected. You have to do that with buffer areas, with screening, using a variety of methods, okay, and sheer distance, frankly, in terms of any kind of structure or building, okay? So that is on the radar, very high up. Second there, want to create sustainable revenue, and I'm really talking about property tax and income tax. I don't know, your level of knowledge on kind of how townships are funded, but if you know this, then just bear with me. Property tax typically is the number one, but not typically. For townships, it's the number one revenue source. Okay? There's only very limited circumstances where a township can put on an income tax. That's usually through, or most commonly through a JED district, Joint Economic Development District, JED or JEDD. Sometimes you see it. There is, I believe it, there's a JED on this property. It's sitting there, it's ready to earn money, okay, based on, the workers that are there. So that is another high level goal, in terms of, we want to create revenue. Again, this is not unlike many communities in Ohio and across the country have been doing this for several years, controlling their own destiny with good sites, or waiting for that site to become, great. And then, frankly, it's one very important way that a community can be proactive. And what are you being proactive against? You're being proactive against holding your taxes down as much as possible. That's the bottom line. The more revenue that the township can get from things like a JED district, okay, which I think they get upwards of $6 million-ish, I think somewhere in that right now annually. That's a lot for a township. But there again, there's high level services, every cost is going up. So you have to look at that. Another high level goal, certainly whatever might go here or happen, want to complement and support the other township stakeholders. Stakeholders meaning that could be, other businesses, other institutions, whatever, you're part of the stakeholder. And we don't want to do something that's going to, take away. We want to complement and support and enhance. Okay. And then lastly, and I think Sycamore has done an awesome job of this through many years, is we always want to ensure high quality development. You live here, you're here every day. You can see the level and the quality of development that's been going on here for many years. So they've got that one nailed down. But again, I want to put it up there to say, hey, listen, whatever might go here, is going to look good. It's going to be quality materials, it's going to hold up over time. Okay? And then last couple slides is just I want to give you some ideas. If we throw out types of land uses, again, I don't know what your backgrounds are, but I want you just to give one visual image of each one. So again, for me, there's 3 or 4 main land uses, and there's more, but that might go on a site like this. But I pick out the main ones. Office, I try to pick local stuff, okay? That's next door, okay? That's Redstone. And again, don't look at sizes or heights. I know you're, freaking out. Don't. I just want to give you something that you've seen it. Okay, so office could be 2-story, could be 3-story. Medical, there's Mercy Health. That's on the west side. Again, medical office building, MOB, as it's called. Again, that's a very active market. You probably will be being active, okay? And I'm not here to say that there's a gap in the market from some hospital group, but I'm just saying, that is an active market, that you're seeing a lot of. Retail, obviously there's a lot of retail right now, in and around the Kenwood area. There's a local, retail development. I think we all know what retail is. Residential, when we talk about residential, it could be a lot of things. And again, don't look at this. This is road in Silverton. This is the EG 47. Okay. And I actually worked on this project, and it was fun to work on. It's a mixed use. It's basically Miller Valentine, lead developer, but they did, I forget how many units. I feel like it's 150 to 200. It's pretty dense. But anyway, that's the back end. And then the front end, which nothing's happened yet, but it will, is when we did the PUD, the plan unit development for that, that's going to be, I think, a 3-story Class A office space. Okay, right out there on Montgomery Road. So I just want to give you something that residential. Yeah, residential could be townhomes. Okay, another kind of planning 101, or one scenario is, hey, you have what's called transitional, land uses, or transition planning, or transition zoning, where you transition from single family, and then maybe you have some type of residential, and then maybe you have some type of commercial, office, medical, whatever, to kind of transition from one land use up to a higher level of one. That could be townhomes, that could be 4 units attached, it could be all kinds of flavors of residential. I just picked that one because it was close. And then mixed use, when I say mixed use, when we talk about mixed use, you're seeing a lot more of this even around these parts, these days. That's basically a site, usually a larger site, but I'd say 7.5 acres is fair. It's a mixture of different types of uses. A lot of times, again, you don't have to see residential on there, but a lot of times you see residential. It doesn't have to be. It could be office and retail. It could be residential office and retail. It could be retail and office and medical. I mean, you see all of these different combinations. So mixed use, particularly, when you're talking about designing something with a vision and designing a development that has things like pedestrian connections and gathering areas, that's where mixed use is really taken off. Experiential, about retail, you going to experience. Development's doing the same thing. Even if it's all office, they're doing more experiential planning. They're having more amenities on the site. It could be gathering areas. There could be a loop walking trail. Just bring out things you see in other mixed use developments. So mixed use is just different uses on a comprehensively planned site at the same time. That's how I'm getting out. That's not anything. So those are my slides.
Just,
then, yes, ma'am.
So that mixed use in Atlanta that you were just showing us?
Yes.
How many acres is that?
No, I don't know. I found this. I wanted to find something that had a nice bird's eye view.
Right.
So I wanted to basically just say that, hey, in there, that's got residential up top. It's got some office. It's got first level retail and restaurants, bars. It's very common. Okay, so I don't know if that's
right. But seven acres.
That's not too much different.
I would, okay.
So I would say about 5, maybe 6 acres tops. Yeah.
In Atlanta, in this development?
It's in the ballpark. You can see how things are, you've been to these locally and maybe when you travel, it's comprehensively planned. Everything's integrated. Really such good mixed use development. Hopefully using a PUD, zoning tool, should really be planned and integrated from a pedestrian standpoint, from an activity standpoint. So the good ones will do that. So, all right. So that's my 15 or 20 minutes of background. Okay. And at this point, again, up till we take a break, with 15 or 20 minutes to go, I've got questions that if it gets kind of quiet, I can start moving down these. But again, this is Q&A time. This is feedback time. Again, we want to hear from you folks. good, bad, and different ideas for the site, concern for the site. And those are kind of my first couple of questions. You know, just start off with, and kind of broached it is, you know, what concerns do you have of whatever we develop here? You know, or issues you might see or want us to be aware of that maybe we don't know about or we want to hear.
Okay, so you're a land use planner. What do you consider an adequate buffer between residential and a commercial development? Like a distance. Now, I'm not talking about like a fence or shrubs. The distance between the buildings, between a residential lot and where your building should be on at that.
Well, I'll start with it depends, but it does because, you know, like I said, this gentleman, it depends because I don't know the type of development. I don't know the height of development.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, when I'm reviewing plans for communities, I'm reviewing a mixed use development, let's say, I'm going to be looking at things like the type of use that's going up against the property. I'm looking at the height. Okay. I'm looking at the intensity, the density of the use. I'm looking at where is the parking areas located. Okay. I'm looking at more than that, but those are some of the high points. So I'm not trying to skirt the question.
Mm-hmm.
It depends. Now, I will tell you that I would say at least 50 feet. I mean, and that, again, that depends. That's a lower intensity land use. I would say at least 50, if not 100.
Okay, well, this township will do less than that. They have on mixed use. So what scares me on this is the residential you've got included in the plan. That terrifies me. I feel like someone's going to plan something.
I agree.
You're encroaching on a neighborhood when you're including those 3 lots. That's
a great point. Just keep in mind that nothing is planned yet. I just want to give you examples of types of things that could be able to.
But we own, I mean, the township owns that. Right.
So I guess the comment is what residential as a use on the property isn't.
Well, I mean, if you were doing the transitional, I see my question is, what is the plan? If you've got, you own, they're going to put this out with residential lots as part of this to be for somebody to do a master plan.
I don't know that. We don't know that.
Okay.
I don't know.
So Tracy, I'm going to jump in just for a second.
Sure.
This outline, this is showing you all of the contiguous township-owned properties.
Right.
The reason we're having these meetings right now is to determine, the overall feel of this plan, the concept, the mixed-use ratio. You know, if we get comments back from this group, about those residential lots, this is your opportunity to help shape the future development on this site. So if you guys tell us, the residential lots don't make any sense to be a part of this, then that potentially gets taken out. So we're not saying this is the final outline of what goes out for development.
It's a complete blank slate.
Right.
The very first group we talked to. So great comment.
Right. I mean, because you're going to have a group of business people here, right? And the next focus group is going to be business, and they can look and say, hey, but we have these lots. Why can't we take more lots? That's
my concern is those lots would have a back access like you were saying. And I don't see the purpose of that at all because no other development has I mean, if you look at where the theater is, or if you look across over where a drug warehouse was, you don't have a back way out into that neighborhood. I mean, I just don't see what the purpose of that is at all. And I'm concerned whatever goes in, that they can walk right into our house, because as you were saying, the buffer, if you go, I mean, and I don't know if this was included in anything that you guys did, but if you go all the way down, I guess it's Frolic, go all the way down that new building right there.
That's 40 feet. That's the buffer is 40 feet.
But those people they look like they're right up against that house.
40
and they
feet.
can look right down into their yard, right down. I mean, they have no privacy at all. They can look right down in their house.
Yeah.
You can't build a fence that high.
No, exactly.
I mean, you need a fence and you need trees.
Yeah.
That'll grow fast. Evergreens or something that are not a deciduous tree. It's going to block it all the time.
Right.
I don't know.
You know what? I don't know how I know this, or maybe this was in a dream, but I'm with Skylar. I think that's just the they included those three properties in there because it was called the Taco Bell properties. I don't think that those are going to be I think they're going to eventually sell those properties individually, just as a house again.
Well,
They could, but they could also say, we're going to take all those houses eminent domain.
Okay, you
to
live in
do that.
Sycamore Township?
We all live in the same neighborhood.
That's what I'm saying. When you say they, that's
I'm
us.
talking,
That's
well, the
us.
trustees can,
Well, then we have to,
they're in there for
I know,
4
but
years.
we are kind of they in a sense. So to say that they're going to do that.
For economic, I'm sorry, for eminent domain.
Right.
Just to clarify for eminent domain, if you're saying, hey, township can take, these X other properties for eminent domain as part of the development project, you cannot do that. There was a big case many years ago, well, Norway was.
For access? Can't they do it for access?
You can do it for access.
Well.
Development. You can do it for, just roadway, you can do it for drainage, I mean, these
Right.
types of things, but not for development. So,
Right.
but like Skylar said, we put everything on here, just want to say, hey, this
Yeah.
is what is out there. But yeah, we have no idea what's gonna happen. I will tell you just from my experience that, the developers, developer who do this site is going to be a developer that's done some hefty sites. Okay, this isn't, probably a small developer kind of thing. And having worked with those folks through the years, they're not going to see much any value of these parcels. Jumping the gun, but it's like, that's just my 2 cents. Again, I can't address why they were purchased, because I wasn't here. But, that's, today, that does not have a bunch of development value to speak of.
I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
Assuming here that the residential properties on Orchard are not going to be used, they're going to be just left alone and no entrance or exit. So just look at the regular commercial part of the property. Thinking positive, what if I put a Kroger there? Would it be the building's not too high? It's not high density with residential. What about a Kroger? We had a Kroger in Kenwood.
What about, it sounds like is that kind of feedback saying, hey, maybe.
It's a commercial area, but you jam residential in there with commercial, that's going to increase more traffic. The school across there has 200 kids in and out of there.
And mine's one of them, so you're gonna hear a lot from me on that.
You get kids coming in and out of there, church, then the apartments right next to that, or the townhouses right next to that. You got it. The site here, go to OKI traffic, go to the website, OKI traffic count. There's 15,000 cars that come by the Redstone building.
Yeah.
24 hours. And then at the town center, there's 22,000 cars. And at Kenwood Road at Union Savings, 21,000 cars. Just go to the website and click on it, expand it. Holy cow. And then the new Grader site down by Galbraith, they bought that for $2.1 million, just the land. And they're going to put $1 billion into the building probably. You got 19,000 cars there, then 8,700 cars coming by Gilligan and Galbraith. That's all. So I'm just saying, not to have a huge building, but what about a compromise, a Kroger or a 1-level, 2-level building away from Orchard and minimal entrance and exits, not to mess up the school and the residential next to it and everything around it, and the Redstone building too.
Yeah.
That's my.
Great idea.
Yes, sir.
I've paid a lot of attention since I was invited to this because I pass that at least twice a day, multiple times usually, but at least twice at 7:45 when I take my child to St. Vincent Fair and at 2:40 when I go to pick her up. And I've also worked playground duty, which you guys may not be aware of this, but you don't realize how many cars try to find an easy way to get where there's not an easy way, like you said, Fields Erdel.
And they cut through.
And the cut through. I have already seen it just in the 2 years of what happened at Happiness Way where that's closed. I live on a double-ended cul-de-sac and people don't know it is. And they come flying back through there and they're like, oh, and then they're like, shit, I can't get out here. Oh, can't get out here. So there they go back again. And we are out there as residents saying, slow down, stop,
Yeah.
no exit, no, it's, no outlet. But I could only imagine when I worked playground duty, how many cars we said, you can't cut through here, and they get all mad, then they spin out and spill out, and it's like crazy. And so I can see if this was especially one of those multi-use where people are living, leaving, trying to get to work, facing the traffic that's already there of other people trying to get to work, and then they're like water, they're gonna try to find another way to go, and it's scary to think.
I agree with you. Yeah, traffic's a big deal. It affects, frankly, particularly on something like this, the density. I keep saying density. Traffic is one of the biggies. Traffic and parking, one of the big issues. The big variables in terms of how dense, and how many people you can put in there. I don't care if it's square footage of retail or how many workers in a, white collar kind of situation. That's the biggie, and obviously, the applicant who wants to develop this would have to prepare a full traffic impact study. That's the traffic analysis, and then the township, and particularly the county engineer, who's the township's folks on the engineering side, they're going to be looking at that and scrutinizing that. And there's been, just in my experience, there's plenty of projects that just went away, got turned down because the density that the developer wanted was way too dense in terms of what that resulted in the traffic impact. And yeah, I'm jumping ahead. I'm just giving you examples of, that it's kind of a restrictor. It's one of the variables. It's like, hey, listen, would there be more traffic up on the site? Sure. But that's going to limit the density, whatever that density is. Start looking at the number of trips, the type of land uses, if I could answer some of those. So there's that. Again, there's going to be traffic because there's nothing there right now. Yes, sir.
What is the most lucrative use of the land? Because that's what they're going to look at. Whatever's going to be making the most money for the land is what they're going to look at.
End user?
Well, from the township perspective on what we're either going to sell it for, use-wise, or whatever, that's going to maximize our dollars as a township.
Good question. Okay. So there's two things to this. There's two variables. There's the price you get up front for the sale of the land.
Can I interrupt you just one? How valuable is that piece of property there?
Says
Hamilton
15
County,
million on
Claremont
here.
County.
It says 15 million on the.
I know that, but I mean, if a developer would love to land somewhere, would they like the land right there? Would they like the land out in Loveland? Would they like the land in somewhere else? How valuable?
There's plenty of developers. The question is again, developers obviously have oftentimes different motives than a township or a city. That's why I was asking. If you're a developer, your probably highest and best use, if I want to make the most amount of money, it's probably going to be, some type of retail, service, that type of thing, particularly the corners and the frontage up front. Now, as you go back, retail loses a little bit of its value, and maybe it's, a Class A office. Maybe it's if you get the right medical user, okay? That's the developer standpoint, okay? The township, sometimes there's overlap, but I would answer that a totally different way. This is just my Jay's opinion. From a township standpoint, this is an incredible asset. 7.5 acres that's been assembled through the years for whatever reasons. You got it, and that's a beautiful asset that many, many communities would die to have. And so
then really it's an extremely valuable piece of property.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's valuable from one of those goals I had up there, from a sustainable revenue, keeping your property taxes down. That's where the rubber meets the road. It helps to a great degree. So that's where I would tell certain clients to be like, hey, listen, if now's not the right time to develop it for X, Y, or Z, whatever that is, I've told many clients through the years on an identical situation. It's like I would sit on the land, because it's not going away. It's only going to go up in value, particularly if you look at the Kenwood, Sycamore Township market. We all know that this is like a hot place. The question is, how are we going through this process to be proactive? It's like, okay, what do we think we should target or hold out for? And again, I can't speak for the trustees. Let's just give you my opinion. But I think it's a valuable piece of land. I think it could be a long-term sustainable revenue driver. And again, I don't want I don't want to talk down of the purchase price, but again, what I've seen with many communities, and again, I'd probably suggest this, is like, don't get caught up on the purchase price. That's a one-time thing. Certainly not suggesting you give it away for free. But to me, the real value is long-term, I keep going back to sustainable revenue stream. I want to make sure that if I'm the township, I want to get a lot of money off of this year in and year out to help services, keeping those levels high of services that you enjoy, and reducing, hopefully, the need to put bond levies on. That's how townships have to go out to get money. Property tax and bond levy. I mean, there's other sources, but those are the big ones. Again, that's just me. I don't want to speak for the trustees, but it's like I think it's a valuable piece. And again, I think they do as well. I mean, and I think that's why we're, spending a few months doing this kind of, feedback out. So I don't know, did I answer your question? I know we went all around. I'm circling back to, your questions.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
a lot of it is you just don't know until you see it when you sit down with the developer.
Right.
I think what we're trying to do here at the end of the day is, like I said, to give kind of a vision, a set of talking points visually from a master plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you every time I've done one of those, it almost never, it never ends up exactly like that concept plan. But what's valuable for the community, and particularly, and I've been on both sides, I've been on the development side, I've been on the city, and I've been on the township side, is that it creates kind of bumpers. It's like bumper bowling. It kind of creates like, developer comes in and says, I want to put 300, townhomes there. I wouldn't think, that the master plan may say, well, there's no residential here. Or maybe the master plan says, well, the vision is that there's a small component of residential, but not. So we're at the infancy of this whole thing. Okay.
It's just that we have a mixed-use development. Happiness, right? You can look at it when you leave here.
Yes.
So you're bookending the residential neighborhood with that, and it has to work together.
Agreed.
It has to, or the township has to tell us what plan is for the neighborhood.
So Tracy, real quick. Okay, you're talking about other mixed-use development sites in the area. Okay, what makes sense there? What works? What doesn't? Can you answer those questions?
Ask it again.
So what works on the other site?
Yeah.
What do we like about it? What are the benefits of it? What are the drawbacks? What are the things that, if we can avoid past mistakes moving forward, how do we get the benefit and avoid some of those pitfalls?
My personal thoughts are more buffers between the residential neighborhood and the development. The one that they're building on Happiness Way is, I believe, 40 feet from the residential lot to the building, the apartment building, 40 feet, where that's why I asked the question. So I think you need more buffer, and I think it needs to be less dense than what that is. That SPI, is that what it is? SPI?
The SPI overlay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Overlay. It's just a very dense, there's a lot of,
It allows for high density.
surface, right, and
Yep.
there's not a lot of greenery.
Mhm.
It's a lot of surface
Mhm.
and building, there's not a lot of greenery. So to me, it's not complementary to a residential neighborhood. So I would like to see, if it's mixed use or whatever is there, I would like to see it be more harmonious with the residential.
Adequate buffering.
Tracy, turn your mic on.
Oh, I can't believe
we could hear you from the pickups. But, okay, so talk about the buffer a little bit more. Okay. Are we talking about green space buffer? Are we talking about a transitional use buffer?
Well,
a combination of the two?
Probably
What
a
makes sense for you?
combination. I mean,
Height.
I personally do not think that you should have an apartment. In the case of that development, we've got an apartment building that is 40 feet from someone's house, and it's going to be like 3 apartment levels up where people are looking down into residential. There has to be more transition. There has to be more greenery. There has to be more space. If you're going to have that height.
Privacy.
Okay.
That's,
If that was only 1 or 2 stories, would that be bearable? Versus, like you just said, the 3 or 4 stories?
well, it's 3, if it's,
Yeah, but was only
it has to
one
be more
story
than
or 2
4, it has to
stories.
be more than 40 feet away.
Huh.
No, I mean, 2 stories on a ranch house looking
Yeah.
down on my,
What
on my.
what I'm saying is if that project there would have, instead of being the 4 stories, whatever it was, like the Redstone over there, that's, to me, that was a little bit much,
Sure.
right? If that was only 1 or 2 stories there,
Mhm. And it's farther
Yeah.
away.
all right, farther away, that would.
50
help immensely
feet,
with
yes.
the height.
Height is a huge thing, I think.
Height is,
Especially, and
yes.
like you said, I think a transitional, if you're gonna have multiple use, mixed use, I think having transitional out to the commercial is more beneficial personal. That's my personal opinion on it.
And I'll tell you, and again, I'm not saying a dense residential project couldn't work here. I'm a little skeptical, just looking at the site, because typically, it eats up a lot of parking. You can go down to, the example I gave you, AG 47, okay, they have all surface parking. And there's nothing, they did underground retention, for the stormwater.
Mhm.
It saves some, and that's expensive, but it saves land. But there's no garage parking for that, for the residential, because it's hard, particularly, it's even in a hot site like this, in Kenwood area, it's hard to make the math work
Mhm.
from a pro forma standpoint. And you see more of that when you need density. And that's why you see downtown, OTR, really dense apartments, okay? That's where they can maybe at some point start to justify a parking garage. So my point is, I think that if it is residential, it's just a guess, I think it would be lower density, if there is any, lower density, transitional, maybe townhomes. I just think that the surface parking would eat up so much from a value, if I got my developer hat on again,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna, I might have a little bit of residential, particularly if the township says so, but otherwise, it's like, it's all asphalt. So I don't wanna say it wouldn't happen, I'm just looking at this site, just based on my experience, it's like, I don't know how much residential you're gonna put in there.
Sure.
And I don't see a parking garage being supported, given the price of parking garages, particularly today.
Yeah. So if you weren't going to do residential, I don't think you should have a big, the height would be an issue.
Any land use, like you're saying, yes.
Mhm.
Well, let me ask you.
But yet again,
Go
we
ahead.
see the Redstone over there. To me, that's a prime example of a huge, what is that, offices in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that
Just
was my next
eyesore.
question. So I was gonna ask you, you've got the Redstone development right next door. What issues, since you live there, right there, what issues have you seen? Have you dealt with?
just like someone said, they
The
look
height.
right in.
They
The
look
height.
right in the
Right in-
house.
I mean,
When I look-
we're low to begin with.
Yeah.
It's not like
We're down. That's like a hill that goes down to our yard. We're lower.
You guys were on the high end of the whole development over there on.
Where you
the
would
street.
think is.
Believe me, I pity what happened.
Right.
But we're on the low end of this.
Our backyards go back and then they go up a hill and then they go up to where Redwood's built. Right. And not only that, but when I'm standing in our kitchen, it's a sink, and I look out our window, I look that direction, that's all I can see. It's the entire window, and it's a big, it's like 3 windows. It's a big window, and that's all I see. I can't see the sun. I can't see the sunset. It's like, that's all I see. That and the neighbor's tree next door. That's it. It's like, I don't want to look at that.
And the
And I don't want to
Redstone
look at that
building,
back here either.
it overshadows Styrex too.
Yeah.
You just look at, when you look at Styrex, you
There's
just
probably
see
Well,
the
40
building.
foot trees over there on the high side of this property that the Redstone towers over.
Mhm.
Well, this is getting off topic, but when we first bought our house 27
It's
years ago.
almost 30, right?
Yeah, it's almost 30. Yeah, it's 28 years ago. Well, anyway, neighbors told us, like original owners, and we bought it from an original owner, but they said that where you go down to where that Redstone building is, that little, right there at Styrex, that was supposed to go all the way through. And that, and I guess it's Greg Pansero, I don't know, or his father-in-law or whoever it was that owned Kenwood Town Center, they wanted to knock everything down and build a strip mall in there. And that's what that was supposed to be. But, and we were always like, no. And I know this would never happen. And it's really at a bad spot and probably not big enough, but I would like to see a community center go in there and a pool. You know, I mean, like something like Boyish Rec Center. I mean, but on a smaller scale. I just looked it up, and that's on 16 and a half acres, but 12 of it are park of the woods and stuff. You know, like hiking trails and everything. I mean, it would fit. It's not a good spot for it, but I mean, I don't know why, as big as Sycamore Township is, we don't have something like that. As much money as we have, because we've got a lot of money-making things, you know, with a town center there, and, you know, maybe it's time to do something for the residents, you know, instead of keep making more money. I mean, I understand about keeping costs down. I agree with that, Sue, but, you know, we just don't have things available to us like that.
Let's go on that on a second. Is there any developments around Greater Cincinnati, let's say? Yeah. Could be mixed use or whatever. Can you think of any pop into your head that you'd be like, oh, that would be great right there, or parts of it would be great right there? Anything?
I think those little townhouses down in Marymount are cute that they built back by Kroger's. Have you ever been back in there? They look like old houses. They have like little picket fences. It might be corny if that's a residential area, but yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Those are cute, and they're not real big. They're not real high.
Does anyone know why the Kroger's didn't last in Kenwood, that you said was there? Somebody said it was.
They had no lease in that Bear Creek Capital, where all that development is. They had no lease.
Where Whole Foods
And then
is?
Bear Creek
Yeah.
Capital went bankrupt.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they went into receivership and Kroger got out.
The building was dilapidating around it, basically.
Okay.
And they had
Yeah,
to
that's
move.
where it was unfinished for years.
Yes,
right.
I do
Yeah,
remember
that's-
that, but I didn't know
Mhm.
why.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't know why Kroger,
Yeah.
if there was something with the township and Kroger that caused,
It was-
Green
Well,
said
Kroger
there were
actually
2
went in
years.
there, where Whole Foods is. That was
Right.
the Kroger first.
but
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
And then there was the Kroger in the parking lot, yeah.
Right.
so.
Let me hit you with one of my questions when I was writing these up. Do you see any, this is just me at my desk here, do you see any value, whatever kind of development, of creating any kind of pedestrian connection? You know, I know there's probably pros and cons maybe with that, but any kind of pedestrian connection between, say, Orchard and the Montgomery Road sidewalk system? What do you think by that?
If there was a community
If
pool.
there was
right
a
there,
community
I think
center,
that
a community
different.
center, a walking
If there's a
path.
sidewalk,
All the time.
I'm not leading, you know, I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just saying, you know, is there value, or do you see concerns with having, if you told a developer, hey, as part of the deal, you have to have a meandering sidewalk that goes from Montgomery Road back to Orchard? No.
I don't want these people in our backyard.
I just wanted to, because, you know, some people might say, well, yeah, I'd like access to Montgomery Road.
They will still do it.
I will say,
They'll do it.
They'll still do it.
But then you got,
Once again, 30 years ago, when we lived there, there was an apartment building, Skylar was right in that back property. And those people used to work over at Frank's, it was like a nursery and some of those other little things. They used to come right through our yards and go through there.
They do it.
You guys can't walk, you know.
They do it
I'm not walking
anyways.
all the way around. So that little fence that was there meant nothing. So that was even fenced, let alone a sidewalk.
And there was two of them next to us that were, you know, live, and they would just be terrified. You know, these people, you know, see teenage boys in their backyards, like, I mean, we just don't need them in the backyard. You know, once you get to something like
You got it?
just cut it
something like
off.
a rec center,
Yeah,
like
cut it off.
something
Don't let anyone
where
come
the
through.
residents can get there.
I would walk around. I had no problem.
Yeah, I wouldn't have part of it either.
You'll gladly do the extra exercise, that's even healthier.
Mhm.
What about architecture and design? I was gonna ask you, again, not that you're architects, but we all know what buildings we kind of like or don't like. I mean, do you have any examples around town and township or Cincinnati? You know, again, you got traditional, you know, brick and, you know, with the pitched roof, you've got more modern, traditional, everything in between. Is there anything that you may say, oh, again, I know you don't know what kind of building, but again, use your imagination. Anything you're like, I don't want that, or I think that's more appropriate?
Stay away from those eyesores on Stewart and Montgomery.
Oh, yeah.
Those are eyesores.
Which one?
The AG-47.
The apartment,
What
yeah.
about the townhomes and everything inside?
No, the AG-47.
Oh, AG-47.
Oh, yeah, those are.
That development's
I like the stone look that they go with a lot now, where
Just two.
the bottom looks kind of like, is it,
Kenwood, Montgomery, or Kenwood and Galvin, all this office, whatever they have
no,
there.
kind of like what, I can't think of the name of it. The Cooper's Hawk, how they've got like they're, how it's kind of made with
Well,
like
like faux stone.
stone and then like some,
Yeah.
it almost looks like wood but I'm sure.
Natural materials.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are there any buildings that you've seen in the township itself recently that you liked aesthetically?
Myers White Cooper's doing a great job.
Okay.
And it's a one-story building. It's not messing up that neighborhood too bad back there. I don't know about their water runoff, but Myers White Cooper seems to be doing a heck of a job.
Which development is that?
On Kenwood Road
Kenwood.
and
It's at Galbraith.
Galbraith,
and going
but it's
north.
North, okay.
going towards
The new-
almost by the Baptist Church across from
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
The
Okay.
one-story bricks.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're doing a heck of a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their lighting back there, it's not messing up that neighborhood back there that's been there for 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
What's that called? Meyer what?
Myers White Cooper.
He's the developer.
He's a developer. They're big developers.
Yeah, that does look nice. I know where you're talking about.
Yeah.
Newer stuff.
That's a compliment. That they're doing I think, as a developer, doing a great job.
Yeah, that's more of a residential aesthetic, although it's still office space.
Yeah.
It looks nice.
And it's one story.
Yeah.
And they're farther away from the people in the back. Just go to the auditor site and pull it up and look at the plot. You can see
Mhm.
and
Yeah, all their drainage is in the back.
right.
Yeah, they had to
Said that one house.
How about Bank of America, the Merrill Lynch building?
Well, that was the old
Staggy building.
Staggy building. Yeah,
It's a nice addition.
they did good.
They did a nice job. I think that looked,
Aesthetic-wise, how do you like it?
I like it.
It's neat. Yeah, yeah.
Because I mean, that's still,
Yes.
that has some
It's much better than
modern
what was there.
aspects, but it's
They did
not-
a good job not messing up the land next to Verizon. They did a good job there.
And the traffic.
My kids did.
Really, it was a problem at times, but it wasn't that bad. They
But
did
the
good.
building's been there, the Staggy building's been there since the 60s. You know, that was before Kenwood really took off. It was a Kenwood Plaza. There was no Kenwood Mall across from
Right,
there.
and fortunately, Hewitt was right across the street,
Yes.
wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the nice things, I mean, you've got protection here on two fronts. One, I can't cite them off the top of my head, but Skylar, you've got design guidelines, right? Architectural design guidelines in the zoning resolution, zoning code. And even if you didn't have that, which they have that, you know, the nice thing about a township, you know, in this case, owning its own piece of development land is you call the shots, you're the property owner. So you don't need anything in the
Yeah.
zoning code. It's a nice guide, but it's like, hey, listen, if we want you to have whatever, 40% stone on the front, that's what's going, yeah, it's negotiation, but it's nice to have that leverage, you know, as the property owner.
But Holden Graders looks nice too. Just look at the outside. That looks really nice.
Let me ask Skylar, who is going to make the ultimate decision on what happens?
Well, ultimately, it's the board of trustees.
The township trustees.
Trustees, okay.
But, you know, we talked about this at the beginning. You know, we started talking about they developing it. Well, tonight, you're they.
That's it.
Because, you know, we're all in this together. You guys are on the ground floor. So, you know, I'm not saying that this isn't going to go through, you know, an evolution of sorts, but the whole point of starting this process with a residents focus group is to try and start laying out some general guidelines. Let's put some guardrails on this thing. Or,
Yeah.
you know, if we are trying
I agree.
to maximize development on this, how do we mitigate the impacts on the adjacent residential, you know, property? You know, I'll say one, this isn't a residential lot. You know, this isn't the Myers White Cooper site
Right.
that was surrounded by, you know, a residence. There's residential to the back, but the front, that's Montgomery Road, okay? I mean, this is
It's a
probably.
highway, it's a state highway.
This is probably the highest value commercial property in the entire region.
Yeah,
Okay,
I agree.
So, I mean, something's gotta go here. What's gonna go here that the residents are gonna be happy with? You know, or what are some mitigating elements that we can put in here, you know, to protect that residence? This isn't being incorporated into your neighborhood, whether you see those residential lots on that line or not. We're not trying to encroach into the neighborhood. we're trying to develop something on Montgomery Road and protect the neighborhood while we do it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, I'll go back to the market analysis, where the economist, one of the points was, hey, listen, you probably need a residential development in 80 to 120 units. And going back to my comment a few minutes ago, if you put, let's say, 120 units, that's going to be probably 2 to 250 parking spaces. Your site's like done, or mostly done, a lot done.
Yeah.
And that is not the highest and best use. Unless you're developing all blinders on, I just want to do residential. To Skylar's point, it's like that is not a residential site. Again, maybe there's a piece of it. Sometimes those mixed use, some of those older mixed use developments, you see a lot of the second and third story, if there would be a second or third story here. You do see that, some vertical, where you have some limited, residential on top of, retail, service, restaurant, bar, whatever. Yeah. So.
Let's go back to the example of Redstone, okay? Redstone is a great, viable office building, but there's planning implementations that could have been better, all right? I'm being very nice about that. You can be on the deck of the parking garage, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And the neighbor could be on the deck and hand me a hot dog,
Yes,
okay?
yes, it's true.
Okay, so there was obviously not a buffer there. There's things that don't make sense now that it's fully implemented. But would Redstone work if it was immediately adjacent to Montgomery Road? If the high density was put forward? Maybe not the same configuration. Maybe it's lower and wider.
The height, the height is the key.
What's that?
The height is the key.
I hear you.
That's,
Yeah, if Redstone was closer to the road, so that the higher density was.
it would help.
So basically what you're saying is if we took Redstone and put it right there, it would make it look totally different.
Yeah.
And everybody would be feeling different.
Sure.
Yeah, I see you.
Same thing. Look at the mixed uses that are proposed for CIG, just south of this property. Okay? If that was laid out differently, if there was a percentage reduction in density, what would protect the neighborhood?
Well, that's what we propose.
What are the design elements that I want to hear those opinions from you guys?
I will tell you, when we thought the CIG project, our comments were it's a hotel, a parking garage, office building, and then how many units?
248, I think.
240, some apartments on 7 acres. We asked for a compromise, take one element out, take the hotel out, spread it out, just do an office in that. It was too dense for a 7. It's 7, and they have that parking garage. They have to do a retention pond that's going to be an acre of that is a retention pond.
So in the planning world, that would be called, make sure you have plenty of open space. That's the magical term.
Mm-hmm.
Open space, not that it's all asphalt and all building. Let's have some green. And that's
Sure.
That's why some of those mixed uses, where they do a good job, the good ones, where they have that green space.
Sure.
Creates that breathing room, and you have the gathering areas and whatever.
Because I will tell you, they count green space as the shrubs they put in the parking islands are counted in the percentage of green space on the CIG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
When the building is occupied for Redstone, obviously it hasn't been for the past year for COVID, but when that building is occupied, there's people from the hospital too. There's people that walk around our neighborhood, which I don't mind. They're just walking, they're on their lunch break, they're getting their exercise. But if there was some type of space in there for them to gather, to have a couple picnic tables, to have some shade trees, and have a meandering path around 7 acres, that might keep the people from the buildings outside of our neighborhood. It might create a better space for them to enjoy the greenery.
Find
They don't need to sit underneath my tree. And not that I mind them people sitting underneath my tree, they're just having a break. I don't mind it, but, you know, it is my tree.
It's your tree. Yeah. And that's, yeah, like the community center thing or whatever, that's kind of the same idea because there's just nowhere for anybody to go. I mean, we had a birthday party last summer. We had COVID and all, but we had a party and we wanted to be outside where we could kind of be spread apart. There's only like 12 of us. We don't have a park. And Sycamore Township, we don't have a park. We don't have going to Madeira. So.
Well,
So I've heard community space a couple of times,
Mhm.
but I also heard that we don't want walkability from this site into the neighborhood.
Right.
No.
If
It could
there
bring
was
other
that
people
buffer
at
of
different
community
times to there.
space, would you want interconnectivity with the neighborhood?
What do you mean interconnectivity with neighborhood?
Walkability,
Can't they
I don't-
sidewalks to the open space.
You mean cut through Orchard to one of these house or properties?
Just what, like, if it was a community
Maybe.
center. just
I don't know.
imagine if it was.
I
don't know yet. That's why
That would
I'm
be-
saying,
I would much rather walk around.
okay. That's why.
I think it's more safety because even if you had a community center there and a pool, but you're gonna bring other kids and other things coming through and troublemakers here and there, and they'll be smoking a, right. So buffer it and don't let anyone come through, even if it's a community center.
That's fine. Believe me,
my
I'm not pushing for it. I just wanted some context to the comment. That's all.
You know what, we literally have the police run down our streets, from the town center because of things that have happened down there.
Because somebody's like.
I mean, there has been multiple times where
Police cars flying up and down, helicopters hovering over your house, and
Orchard Lane, believe me, is busy enough.
I used to have a daycare in our house on Orchard. I ran a daycare. And one time there was a helicopter was hovering over our house. And I called Sycamore Township. And there's policemen, running up down literally running up down our street. And we're like, what's going on? And I called and I don't know who I got in the office. And she said, oh, yeah, somebody's robbed US Bank and they ran out of the back, which is like right into our yard. And we had a tree house. I mean, they could have grabbed one of those kids. I said, why don't you tell us, I mean, we just don't need people in our yards. Yeah.
Let's take our 5-minute break and come back and then wrap up in 10 or 15 minutes. If you want to come up and look at the board, now or after, that's fine. Knock on stuff, everything, and then we'll come back and wrap it up. All right. We can also put anything up from the presentation. We'll look at that.
Hey, Joyce, what is it?
I'm gonna eat my own dinner.
That's okay. They're gonna develop.
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with
Yeah, well, Butler County boys. So,
My sister lives across the street from the new apartment development at Finish Way,
Is that right next door?
right next to the hospital, right next to us.
Where they took all the poor families.
Yeah,
23.
that's ugly. It's an eyesore.
What they're doing
Yeah.
now. Oh.
Exactly.
Oh,
They're not building.
Well, the buildings were kind of ugly anyway, but
Well,
what they've done
they
is
were
even
built,
worse.
that would have been at that time in 1959. That
Yeah.
was at that time.
Number one, it's been certifying this thing since 2014 and didn't keep them up. Because they
No,
were.
they bought it.
They knew what they were gonna do.
They bought it. They started buying the first 4 kids. Four.
Yeah, so they started, and then it was sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I was,
Run them down and tell the
I
township.
was in some of the smaller rural,
Yeah.
so.
The township be happy because of the JED and the JED. So what, they're gonna develop it, so what can we put in there?
I definitely like the Rovers.
Kroger would be great, but I don't know if that meets Kroger's specs.
Although they did benefit from it, it was really more on the safety issue. There was no guarantee that road would be left open. And you say,
Oh, yeah. There's residents first, yeah.
So that was all. Now, it was Yeah.
So then they're coming down and they're turning back there and they're thinking they can cut through. And then they have there and they're
Okay.
That is so.
A lot of our. I think there was some mixed comments during the public hearing. I wasn't here for that. Yeah, I've been with the
I'll look at the auditors.
I can get your contact information and maybe Tracy Collins, who's our, you know him? He's our maintenance supervisor. And really, he's the one in charge of roads. So, it's not to say that he's the final decision maker, so it's the board of trustees, but he's gonna be making recommendations. So I can get your contact info and we can, kind of trade ideas.
And then have it on France and when it's more. Not yet, they have to file that audit. I think.
Yeah, okay. What's your address though?
I'm 79. I think they'll run.
All right.
They have been part of the same township.
Grooming dogs. Okay. So that would be considered a home occupation. She would have to get a condition. I have a Sure. So, really, okay. So I'm complaint based only. So call in and put a complaint. Let me know if you triangle.
My city has 3 months.
Sure, yeah.
And you have to wait. There's days that.
Sure, okay. Talk to your neighbor, let me know what you want to do, you've got my email.
My sister's getting needed. Because in the back, I know where the retention pond is. I mean, she goes, she goes, so I want someone to just go over that. I've got a hotel, up in that. And look at me in my kitchen.
Yeah.
They want me to watch the cook in my shower.
It's 38.
Right.
It's because, you know,
The only reason my sister really bought the house is my dad 652, 16 and 40. I'm on Cyrus. My sister lived anywhere behind me across the street from us. So my dad was one of the early developers.
is that update?
A couple of ways.
6 and 8 left.
Yeah, when they come back.
But my sister's house back then.
There's questions, comments, or the rest of
My brother.
rest of the meeting.
And I live.
Okay.
She's a lawyer.
Start, you know that, you know what you start at the housing sale? Is that in? Okay, so you put it on the market. Right, but they put it on for 275 on these all the built. They put them on, he said, I've already shown it. I've got 20 inch shows today. I've got 11 offers. I'll show to you.
Is that
Be ready.
The planning and zoning administrator.
Better be ready for the contract. And these.
Let's see, since, November 19th.
I went
Was that a year and 4 months right now? So, my background is in urban regional planning. I was the assistant administrator for Sycamore Township, for about 9 years.
Hopefully that'll price out your.
Yeah, I'm kind of a Boulder County boy. I grew up in Fairfield Township.
It was sold in LLC.
Yeah, so, Fairfield Township all my life, went all the way to my university, my undergrad. So yeah, 9 years Fairfield Township.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally not the outlet.
Well, Porter? Rob Porter? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, let's, we got everybody, or? Let's we'll wrap up here. So,
Third one.
I've got one last slide that's just gonna take you through the schedule of the following 3 meetings or so, okay? But before we do that, is there any final comments, feedback, suggestions? And let me just say, it doesn't end tonight. You know, if you see something around town, or you think of something in a month or 2 or 3, you know, it's kind of where you got, if they've got questions or, you know, concerns or ideas, you know.
You all have my email now. So, yeah, and I think I put my cell phone number on that email, so, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to direct this to Skylar. If we took away those residential properties,
Uh-huh.
I guess bring it down to how much under 7 acres would that be?
Oh, gosh. So those are pretty small. I'm gonna say.
They're 50 by 150s, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say maybe about 7,500. So, you know, get rid of those 3. I mean, you're lopping off 3.
So we're down to 7 acres then, because it was 7.
Yeah, 7 acres. Yeah, ish.
What
Yeah.
happens if
Keep
we
in
only
mind,
develop?
some of that's right away.
From your standpoint, your assessment, what if you only develop 5 acres of that? I mean, from in other words, like 1 acre. Oh, Ken, there's no way in the hell we could develop 1 acre, right? So what, is there like a limit or a good number?
You know, that's gonna be up to the trustees, the 3 trustees, you know, so,
I mean, if it was a 5 acre lot.
I'll tell you this, again, from a.
That's a valuable 5 acre lot.
Yeah.
No matter which way you cut it.
I'll tell you from a planner standpoint, whether if I'm master planning this, or if I'm reviewing plans, okay, from a developer, you know, in this case, I'm gonna start with buffer, which is gonna be based on the type of land use and the density, which I talked about, but I'm gonna start talking buffer, make sure I've got the buffer I need, okay?
When we
After
say
that,
buffer, do we mean that the developer owns the buffer?
The developer will typically own the buffer, yes.
Yeah, but what I'm thinking, how about Sycamore Township owning the buffer?
Depends on what the buffer is.
Like in an easement, just it goes just the perimeter of the back of it, right? And the developer buys some trees.
An easement is a restriction on land, but it's like an overlay on top of the land. So the developer would own the land.
Okay.
But if it's a green space easement,
Okay.
then it has to stay green space.
Right, exactly. There it is.
So you could do it, my perspective is this, you could do that, some version of that. You don't see that, or I haven't seen that, if at all, and here's why. Again, I used to work in the city world, so I was on Skylar's side for many years. 1, we would have to maintain it, the cost of that, okay? 2, outside of maintaining it, usually you give it to the developer because you've got the enforcement teeth of the PUD. Or the zoning code will say, hey, listen, we have an approved plan that calls for whatever, 65 feet of buffer where there can't be anything in there. And so if there's anything fishy going on, Skylar, with the appropriate person, institutes enforcement actions. So again, that's not going to get you much much, in my opinion, for the township, other than headaches and more costs to mow another strip of land you're not going to use. Put it on the developer, you have all the enforcement mechanisms all day long. So back to your point, I'm going to be looking, if I'm planning this, reviewing it, I look at buffer, once you got the adequate buffer, okay? And again, I would try to max out the site from a revenue perspective. That does not mean density. That's where it's a balancing test. You talk about height of buildings. That's how you get density on a 7 or 6 acre site. You have to go vertical. Okay, so again, that's why the trustees wanted to do these feedback sessions. So it's a balance. And again, I can't speak for the three trustees, but that's just from my perspective, it's a balance of things. Revenue is one, but it's not all. If it was all about revenue, I'd say, well, geez, let's just put another redstone up. Let's hope the office market comes back. Which I personally think
it is.
Okay. And if you want to just max it out, so again, there's a balance. I mean, most communities will approach this as a balance. They're looking out for you. They're looking out for their own, revenue stream, which goes back to you, helps you. I mean, you're balancing these things. So that I would make sure the buffer's there, and then I would develop the rest of it at an appropriate height. And then density is going to shake out. The parking requirements going to force that density, and it starts getting easier. It starts falling into place. Any other thoughts? Again, keep going after tonight. If you have anything. Yes, sir.
Well, if they do build commercial or some kind of office space or whatever, that's going to bring money in, pay for all the things that we want to do in the community anyway, going forward. So isn't that a good thing? I mean, yeah, we'll give all that space in the back, for the residents that live there. That's great. But overall, the money is going to be bringing in both jobs and money through the JEDs that you spoke about earlier, to do any community development and keep taxes low. Because right now we're not paying any income tax, personal.
And again, you won't, obviously being in a township, but what the concern is going forward.
But you're going to have to pay the levies.
They only have so many tools. And again, that's why I think, from a revenue perspective, it's not all about revenue, but that, to me, that directly helps you. That's one step closer to your community center. You start building sites like this and getting a steady revenue stream. Even though they make $6 million on the current jet, they have other revenue sources. I can tell you that services are expensive, just like all businesses. Townships business, and you guys have a high level of services.
Yeah. Right, right. And I'm not discrediting that at all. I'm just saying, this is land. Where are we going to find a piece of land like that? Again, in Sycamore Township, where you could put something like that.
I think we're already the richest.
It is too valuable. You're right.
Yeah, I think you're right. And Anderson may rival us.
Anderson has a pretty robust system. Mining Township, programming system of services, and Mining Township over in Claremont.
I do know this, that Kenwood is in retail is the king. So if LL Bean or Macy's or anyone, they'll get more sales per square foot in Kenwood than in Dayton, Ohio, or anywhere around. Kenwood.
Our Apple
not
store is
Crestview
one of
Hills.
the highest producing Apple stores in the country. Yeah.
People, my friends from Northern Kentucky, from Burlington, come to Apple. When you walk in the wintertime, they got 3 or 4 security people out front with a line of people waiting to get in.
Yep.
Look at Trader Joe's. Even Trader Joe's people lined up to get in there.
Absolutely.
So I want to come back to your point. You made a good point with, that's a great piece of land for a lot of reasons. I think.
And I don't think that's the spot for a
No.
community center.
From a balancing perspective, I would certainly suggest to any community with this scenario, there's an opportunity here, not only to get a good quality development, okay, whatever it would be, but there's an opportunity to make this a statement piece. A Sycamore Township statement piece. And again, you've got a lot of nice developments in here, but when you own the site, zoning resolution is one thing that you can force developers to do, but when you own it, it's like you can start saying, well, maybe we'd like this. Again, I'm talking about branding, community branding And again, everybody knows where Kenwood is, but with the traffic counts that we talked about, there's opportunity on top of everything else to make this a statement project, I think. And I think that'd be a lost opportunity if you didn't try to do that. Whatever that was. Yeah. So anything else? I'll go to the last slide. And again, keep the comments and ideas coming after this. It doesn't end tonight. I want to stress that. Last slide. We'll get you out of here. So next steps. I mentioned some of this, but so you're up there at the top in March, neighborhood focus group meeting. In 2 weeks, I think Scott, are we still scheduled for 2 weeks or so?
Yeah, so we're calling that, it's the business community focus group. That's March 25th, same room, same time. So that's something that you guys will be able to watch, live stream, just like the folks in township are watching us tonight. Okay. And then after that, there is a developers focus group. Okay. We're going to take the comments that we received from the first two groups that already have investment in the community, whether it's residents or businesses. And we're going to, talk about some of those concerns that each group might have, the potential, the ideas, and see what the developers have to say about that.
And let me interject. I mean, and it's certainly township's going to ultimately be picking what developers to invite, but certainly I've been suggesting that, let's make sure we have a nice cross section of the types of developers. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about the sizes, firms. I'm talking about, certain development companies, specialize in certain types of developments, certain land uses. You've got residential folks, but that's all they do. Then you've got mixed use, where they do a lot of mixed use of office or medical and retail. So you want to get a nice little cross section of all those different types to get all those perspectives. Okay? And then, so that's the developer focus group meeting sometime in April. We're trying to do these 2 weeks apart. Okay. And then what I call it design charrette. So the site master planning charrette, that's basically kind of where we bring a landscape architect in and we kind of sit around a table like a work session and get larger maps than that of the site and just start saying, okay, where would the access go in theory? You're playing master plan, okay? What buffer? That's where the buffer. Where's the buffer go? How deep's the buffer? What do we put back up there? What do we put out front? Okay, so that would be in May. We'll probably have 3 or 4 weeks. I'm thinking like in between that and the April meeting, and then I'll put together a pretty brief report, basically summarizing the notes, the feedbacks, the high points that we're getting from all of these 3 or 4 meetings, and then certainly we will have the you can call it what you want, the vision plan, the master plan will be in that report, and then we'll deliver that to the trustees, and they can comment or review with issues. So it's kind of it's a small, quick hitting project, but I think it's important to start the dialogue with folks like yourselves and other stakeholders who have a stake in this. You're interactive. We want to get out there, and the trustees want to be proactive in that effort. So. Again, Skylar's your guy. You got questions and or ideas and concerns.
With these,
Which mic one? Don't mind, sorry.
With these meetings that are coming up, you said that they're all going to be live?
They're going to be live streamed. So there's a link on the township website that we put up before each one of these meetings.
Okay.
So members of the public, it's not something that you have to sign up for like a Zoom meeting. It's just a live feed.
Okay, and we'll get some sort of notice when those dates are and everything, because when the dates are finalized, we'll get some kind of notice of.
Well, so the first 2 are already finalized.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the next 2. The township stakeholders are business community. That's March 25th.
Yeah, I got that one.
6:30.
Yeah.
The next one is April 8th.
April 8th. Okay.
And then the others, check Facebook, check the township website. We will be advertising.
Thank you.
2 things. Tyler, do we know who the business leader, the area business leaders are going to be?
So we've kind of tapped some of the business owners, property owners in the surrounding area. So there's a representative from the hospital. There's a representative from Kenwood Town Center. There's a representative from let's see, Kenwood Place, Sycamore Plaza, so over there by Dick's and all
Good,
that.
all right, good.
Let me see, who else? I believe a representative from CIG, also a representative from, I believe the gentleman from Trio. So, hey, these, if they're not household names, it's at least names that are recognizable to longtime township residents. So, and we're treating all these groups the same, okay? Folks are being tapped specifically because of the region that you're in. And we're trying to solicit comments without steering, okay? So, I'm tonight, I'm pulling information. I'm not trying to lead one way or the other. We're gonna do the same thing with the business community. The conversation with the development group, it's probably gonna be a little different because now we're gonna be putting guardrails on that, right? Because we're gonna be talking about the concerns from, this group and the next.
Yeah, there's a little bit of overlap, but that's a lot different, obviously, because we want to, when we have these folks all at once in front of us, we want to understand what do they think about the site.
You know what? That was my second question. Don't you think we should define the boundaries before a developer looks at this, right? And says, oh, I'd love to have that, that road going back to, right? Right. I think we need to define the boundaries of this project.
Well, I guess the rationale for putting that master planning, session at the end was the same reason we're here listening to you. I think we wanted to take all the comments from those three groups, put them in a blender, from a balancing standpoint, and see how that shook out. And again, my point a couple minutes ago, we want to make sure in the developer group that we don't have all office people. We're all residential developers. That's why I said we want to make sure we get cross sections. That's sure. If I'm a residential developer, what do you think I'm going to say? I'm going to be like, oh, that'd be beautiful for 95 units. So that's why, or maybe they wouldn't. They say, oh, I can't make that work. Pardon. That's why we're going to do a cross section. And we want to take that feedback, just like your feedback and the major stakeholders for the second meeting, and then put it on Blender, and then start drawing. That was the rationale.
If someone would ask me, what would I like to see there? All right. I would like to see the boundaries defined. If they want to put a retail over there, as long as it's not gaudy, or apartment buildings over there, once again, if they're within reason, right? But I think we need to get Orchard Lane off of the table here. Totally. And I think that should be defined first before a developer comes in and says, oh, those properties there, that looks like that would be great for this. And now you're kind of sending them down the wrong path.
Well, but here again, we're just asking for feedback.
I know.
They're not going to
before we
develop
get too
it.
far into this.
They're not developing it though. They're not
You have
developers
no
who are
idea
going to
what
develop
happened
it. They're just getting ideas, right?
See, again, more rationale. I mean, I would want to hear from the developers before I start drawing on the master plan, because if some developer says, oh my gosh, here's the reason why, residential will not work here. I want to know that before I waste 3 hours with the 8 person in the room. So,
but I would think that they would want to know the area that they're looking at or working with.
You have to understand how we're going to keep it very open-ended with developers. It's going to, and again, they could say, oh, we want to do all this with the homes up there, which I don't think they're going to do, but if they do, okay, we got your feedback.
So we're getting this input independently from each group. Okay, we're taking that all back to a culminating charrette. The developers aren't in the room anymore. Okay, it's back to township staff and some township residents. Okay, and maybe some other maybe some professionals like Jay and Kleinders. Okay, and then we take that input and we're trying to synthesize that into something that's sustainable, that's that's going to add to the vitality of the Kenwood area. Essentially, and it's going to be compatible with all of the surrounding, uses. So, these are just opportunities to get information. Yeah. So final thoughts, we're past 8:00. I don't want to cut anybody off if we've got a good thing going, but let's kind of wrap it up and, just get those final thoughts out there.
Yeah, well, these were the final thoughts, unless you have anything else. I mean,
One more question.
that's the schedule. You got thoughts going through, let's know. Okay.
How long are they gonna, after they get it in May, the trustees get all this stuff, how long before they make a decision on what the heck they're gonna do?
Good question. Yeah. We're still in this pandemic. There's potential uses that aren't viable right now that may be viable in a year, 2 years, 5 years from now. I mean, it's, nothing is saying that we have to put out, have to put a for sale sign on this property, in the next 6 months. There's the drive here is to get a good, viable use for the whole township on this site. It's not that we have to sell for, some external reason. So it's going to take as long as it takes, and right now we have a blank slate. That's why we're talking about it, and that's why we're coming to the residents first.
And you note the